Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and today it is time for a professional match of Terran versus Zerg. Spawning here in the southwest corner of New Repugnancy and playing with the blue Terran SCVs. He's from the greatest country in the world, although, I might personally be a little bit biased there. He's from the Netherlands. We're looking inside of the main base of uThermal. His opponent, in the opposite corner, playing with the red Zerg drones. He's from Ukraine, one of my personal favorite Zerg players to watch. We have none other than Bly. So, uThermal, as of me making this video right now, is with a very significant margin the rank 1 player on the ladder. This is quite impressive actually. He's currently sitting at just a little over 7.2k MMR, which is like 200 points ahead of the rank 2. That's pretty insane when you think about it, right? I mean, 200 points of MMR is a very significant amount, especially at the very tippity top of the ladder. You have to go like 20 wins and 1 loss to even go remotely positive at that point. I think if you win 20, you probably gain like 50 MMR points, and then if you lose 1, you're likely to lose anywhere between like 30 and 100. So it's a very unforgiving position to be, but uThermal right now, he is sitting in that rank 1 position on the ladder. So very, very impressive work right there by him. Although, for what it's worth, Cyril is currently not ranked on the ladder. Sometimes he doesn't really like playing ladder, and I guess he doesn't really like being in that rank 1 position, but he would be very close. I think that Cyril, last time I checked, was also sitting at right around 7.2. Regardless, one of the reasons why I really enjoy watching Bly play StarCraft is because this man comes up with his own strategies. A couple of years ago, for those of you that were subscribed to the YouTube channel back then, you may recall him cheesing the vast majority of the games that he played. He would go for hyper-aggressive Zerg strategies almost every single game. However, over the last year or two, he has really tightened up his macro play. Now, obviously, I say he's tightened up his macro play. He's still very capable of playing a quote-unquote standard meta-esque kind of style, but he does like to mix it up nowadays, especially in the mid and late game as well. And while he doesn't cheese nearly as much anymore, he's still one of those players who you can't really predict. So since he's got that mindset, right, he's got that image, I suppose, of playing pretty cheesy, even though he doesn't do so very often anymore nowadays, a lot of people will still open up just a little bit safer just because they are very familiar with what Bly is capable of. Anyhow, very normal build right here from the Zerg player in red. This is one of the changes that we've seen recently in StarCraft 2. So link speed is going to be delayed a little bit in favor of a faster third hatchery. Always a bit of a gamble, because you basically decide to take the third hatchery before this Overlord arrives on the other side of the map, so you never really know exactly if your opponent is even going for that low ground expansion. I mean, if Terran were to go for 1 base play, I guess you'd be stuck with 3 hatcheries, and you'd probably be in a lot of trouble. But 1 base Terran play is extremely uncommon nowadays, so you sort of make the acceptable gamble there that your opponent is indeed going to go for that low ground expo, and it turns out to be the case in this match right here as well. Now, uThermal is a very well-rounded Terran player. For the longest time, he was playing a bio-based army, and for a while, right, we saw a lot of Terran players switch to mech. He also did the same thing. He became very good at playing mech, but I think nowadays he still does favor playing that biological-based Terran unit composition. So what I mean with that is a lot of Marines, a lot of Medevacs, a lot of Marauders, but he is very good at playing a variety of styles, and I guess in this case, he's opening up with a 1-1-1, so 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport, and he's going for Hellions and then also a Banshee with Cloak. Very, very ordinary game here for both of these players. The first couple of Hellions, though, making their way downtown, trying to roast a couple of drones. I guess they're forcing a couple of Spore Crawlers right now, which I guess Bly needs to make anyway, so it doesn't really matter all too much. The Reaper, though, is still scouting around. And this is one of those things I think uThermal does most games if he can, but you want to do it especially against someone like Bly. I mean, he needs to know if there's like a quick Roach Warren coming up, if there's like a quick Baling Nest, if there's not a gas already taken. He needs to know if something out of the ordinary is going on, but that was a wonderful scout, right? That literally went all the way through the main, through the natural, through the third, and then to the safety of those Hellion flames. Really nice scout right there by the Hellion, or by the Reaper, and obviously, even though it's got a jetpack and it can't fly, it's still definitely worth its weight in gold in Terran versus Zerg, even though Terran players usually only make like just a single one. Just a single one. Anyways, third command center right now coming up, and we do indeed now see that transition towards Stimpack as well as additional barracks. So, it feels like the majority of the Terran versus Zergs I've covered on this YouTube channel recently, they have all favored Terran players going for mech, but yeah, it is still perfectly viable to go ahead and play a bit more of a biological-based unit composition as well. Mech is popular right now, but maybe it's just the flavor of the month, right? Maybe we'll find out in a couple of months from now that bio is still what the preferred method is going to be, as we do see uThermal right now making that transition towards what I think we can consider is his most comfortable strategy. Just a lot of Marines, a lot of siege tanks, medevacs, and then that continuous harass. That's what makes him scary. He can go ahead and do like 3 drops at once, push with his main army, clear the creep, and hit at so many different angles here while harassing his opponent and pushing at the same time as well. It's pretty rough to play against, and it's one of those strategies where you have to make only one mistake if you're Zerg. You make one little error, and all of a sudden you find yourself overrun with Terran units. All right, now this is curious here. We saw that great Overlord Scout just now by Bly. This is actually very uncommon. We saw a really good Overlord Scout right there by Bly that confirmed that indeed uThermal is going for bio. Normally, when that's the case, and these Banshees, by the way, are still going to town. Well, let's just forget about him, okay? Normally, okay, don't forget about him, but they're just gonna get a couple more kills, I think. Normally, when players scout like this, they will decide whether or not they want to go Roaches with upgrades or Hydras with upgrades, or, for example, Zerglings and Banelings. Now, if you're going up against bio, most Zerg players will favor that Zergling Baneling based army, because Banelings and Creep and Zerglings and all that are phenomenal when it comes to dealing with those juicy Marines, because it takes like one good Baneling connection and you can kill all of the Marines that you like. Now, normally when you play against mech, however, that's when Zerg players decide to go for the missile upgrades and, for example, Roaches and Hydras. In this case, it is Bly who scouts that his opponent is going bio, and he's still going Roaches with missile upgrades and carapace. I wonder what kind of strategy he's got in mind. Now, don't get me wrong. Roaches and Ravagers are still capable of killing bio units. It's just that the longer that the game goes on, the weaker that they will become. I would say until about 120 or so army supply, Roaches and Ravagers can seal the deal, but after that it becomes very difficult to get a favorable trait. Now, what you can do, of course, is rain those corrosive biles on the siege tanks. They are, I guess, the scariest unit in this case, but here we go. This is the first time uThermal will actually properly see that he is going up against Roaches and Ravagers, and that does mean he needs to get the heck out of there. Trying to fight that straight on right now, or straight up, is not really a great idea, but he does have, of course, those siege tanks in the safety right now of his bases, and they are going to be able to shell away at these Roaches with ease and pick them off one at a time. Alright, so we do see that mailing list coming up. Another reason why Roach Ravager usually falls off the longer that the game goes on. First off, right, we have the reason that Terran's army sizes just simply become bigger, but also the fact that with Zerg, you can only go up to +2/+2 upgrades when you're at hatchery tech, or at lair tech rather, right? You can only go to +2/+2. As Terran, usually you can go into +2/+2 and then straight into 3/3. And if you ever find yourself, right, with Roaches and Ravagers, and you lose really, really hard against biological-based armies, generally speaking, the reason for that, and we see double scans right now coming up for uThermal, he's unsure what's going on here as well, but the reason for that usually, right, if you get absolutely smashed with your Roaches and Ravagers, is because your opponent has 3/3, or at the very least, they're like a set of upgrades ahead of you. Usually 3/3 for Terran comes out faster when Zerg is going for a Roach Ravager-based army, and that's one of the most vulnerable moments. Now, I like this. Bly is transitioning right now to Centrifugal Hooks, so that's Baneling Speed, but also actually Tunneling Claws. Tunneling Claws is the burrow upgrade. It's the upgrade that allows these Roaches to tunnel underground. Oh, here we go, Bly. Ready to rumble. This is one of those things that Terrans can see if they pay very close attention. You see that little bit of shadow right there? The missile turret is not done just yet, and actually... What? Oh, there's another missile turret right there in the natural. That one will indeed spot the tail end of that engagement. And man, you do one scan and all of a sudden that army is completely evaporated. Siege tanks from a distance shelling away all of these Roaches. And I guess the strategy was cool there by Bly, but it really did not work out in his favor there whatsoever. That was a terrible trade there for the Zerg. Losing like, what, 15 Roaches for pretty much free? I guess he killed like one Marine. Whoop-de-doo. That was definitely not a trade that he was looking for. Now, once again, a couple of Roaches right here. They were spotted by that scan earlier. They did manage to apparently unburrow here, but I feel like these also aren't really going to achieve that much. We see a Marauder switch right now coming up for uThermal. He's actually going very deep onto the creep. Bailing speed does finish right now, and this is a scary location to be. Bailings on creep roll so very fast. It's extremely difficult to split favorably against that. Now, if anyone can do it, I feel like uThermal is the one, but so far, he's dealing with the aggression at home, and he's dealing with the army just fine on the other side of the map as well, but still, Bly needs to be very cautious. He has those Ravagers. I think he's looking for the corrosive balls. There we go. That's going to be the end of one of those siege tanks. But right now, uThermal has cleaned up a base, and this is the point where apparently he starts scanning to clear out the creep. Usually we see that in the other way around. If he can get a good wraparound, though, he can deal a lot of damage to this Terran army with the creep still localized over here at the, I guess, the 4th base location here of the Zerg player. A couple of Bailings trying to roll forward as well. That is not enough Terran army, but at the same time, we see a couple of those Roaches tunneling underneath those siege tanks, picking them off, and at the same time, Zerglings are picking up the reinforcements as well. Bly, in a very, very close hold, is the one who manages to shove that Terran army away. And I feel like one of the main reasons why that happened is just because of these couple of creep tumors. That makes it so much easier for that Zerg army to get away there. Now, oh, that is just outside of the range there of the scan. I think that Bly is looking to either tunnel in or maybe to pick up the reinforcements one at a time once again as well. And this is one of the scary moments, right? Yeah. One of the reasons why I guess uThermal is so strong is because he can parade push across the map. He basically is relentless with the aggression, but this sort of alleviates some of the pressure off of Bly, right? This is one of those moments where he's just simply forcing scans to be utilized, so that's no mules, and he's basically forcing this Terran army to go back home. Still though, as long as Terran stabilizes here eventually, right? He still has a good amount of economy. He's still getting a good amount of upgrades. This is what I mean. We see those +3 upgrades coming up before Zerg even finishes +2. Hive is done right now, so he could continue upgrading here as well. But I do feel like we need to see a switch from primarily Roach Ravager. And apparently in this case, that is gonna be Mutalisk. I love the idea of Tunneling Claws. I think it would work out actually against weaker Terran players really quite well. But it's still a very difficult situation to be in, though, because finally uThermal, he has decided to just simply clump all of his units in one big ball, and he's looking to fight with that instead. Now, I'm curious to see how Bly plans on dealing with this, because that's a scary Terran army. There's a lot of medevacs as well. One downside of having this unit composition is that you don't ever kill the medevacs. Big stim right there being activated as well. uThermal, though, being a little bit too trigger-happy there, I think. Still has a couple of those tumors to deal with as well, but at the same time, we see once again the Mutas trying to engage here on the other side of the map. I guess they're going after depots, but the Marines should be able to shoot them away. We also see Roaches tunneling on the ground, probably going to go after the siege tank as soon as they see it. Well, not going to happen this time around. I guess he's just looking to fight the army instead. At the same time, though, the hatchery was already picked off. We see another hatch right here, acquired as the 5th base here of Zerg. I don't think that one is going to mine for very much, but Bly is counterattacking right now. He's picking up a lot of those reinforcements, and he's actually killing all of the units that are spawning here for Terran relentlessly. Right? I mean, yeah, like Marines are good against Mutas, but not if it's just 1 or 2 at a time. You need like a small little clump of it, and once again, oh my god. Terran is forced to turn all the way back around, as Marauders are obviously being produced as well. They can't shoot up at all. I mean, I guess they could try and lie on their backs and then, like, shoot their concussive shells into the sky. Actually, oh my god, the command center! So very low. It's not going to be enough, though. The SCVs are underneath, and while eventually these Roaches are going to be forced to duck underground once again, uThermal is taking a lot of damage, actually. My god. That was really cool. Dude, I think actually Bly's in a really good spot here. What in the world? So wait, let me get this straight. He went for Roaches Ravagers after scouting his opponent was going bio. It wasn't like a mistake. He did that on purpose. Got Tunneling Claws pretty quickly, teched up towards a Hive. Then rather than going for like immediate Hive units or like, you know, anything along those lines, he just used the Hive to go for +3 carapace. He's now transitioning towards melee upgrades as well, plus he's getting a greater Spire. This is such a Bly-esque thing to do, man. This is not what people do. This is not what people normally play. Right now, he's also got that one Viper up in the air. One Viper doesn't seem like a lot, but it's an army on its own. If you manage to land like one beautiful blinding cloud, or maybe like maybe one parasitic bomb on a medevac, right? You can absolutely smash so many of those units in just a couple of seconds. And still, these Roaches are tunneled everywhere, forcing this Terran player to stay back for much longer than they ideally want to. Bly right now is getting the time to attack up towards Infestors as well as Brute Lords. Now, Infestor Brute Lord, it was the name of the game back in like Wings of Liberty especially. You can get a lot of value with that unit composition. If you manage to land a good fungal growth and you get the Brute Lords ready to fly across the map, you can essentially shut down any kind of bio army, but this is still an unorthodox scenario though here for Bly. I love it. This really shows that we don't really know what the meta is gonna look like in StarCraft, right? Like, I mean, there's a certain set of normal strategies that are considered to be good, but this is so strange. Ooh, Parasitic Bomb right there on the Medivacs. Apparently it was spotted though. Ooh, we see Bly trying to engage right now against that missile turret. Good response there by Terran. Repairing that one just barely in the nick of time. Still, though, that's a very scary amount of Roaches. And Roaches, I mean, in maxed out scenarios, I don't really like them. I don't think they're very good. Yo, what about a Raven? What about, like, one Raven here? Do you not think that would have been worthwhile ages ago? I really think one Raven would have been extremely good. And once again, the Roaches, they're gonna go after the siege tanks. And there we go, the scariest unit in this unit composition. They will all be picked off. And that now allows these Lings, Banes, and Roaches and Ravagers to roll forward. They're gonna try and get some value as well. The Roaches unburrowing once again to try and get some of those units on the retreat. But still, there's a lot more where that came from. We see a lot of reinforcing Terran units right now ready to engage, and the creep finally has been dealt with. It looks like the majority of the mutas are now also being killed. Do we have any corruptors? I don't see any corruptors right now. No. Okay, so no corruptors. Oh, well. Yeah, Lowko, there were no corruptors. Don't worry about it. I was gonna say, Brute Lords would be nice to have here. Nobody saw that, guys. I did not just completely scroll over it. That's not a case of Lowko blindness. It's not a thing. Anyways, Brute Lords are currently morphing, and I think actually this is phenomenal here for Bly. My god. Well, I mean, it's phenomenal, but he's still a little late, though. I feel like that hatchery is not gonna live. He does have all of the bases taken here on the right-hand side, so that's nice, but he is gonna run out of money here in not too long. Terran, in the meantime, is once again forced to deal with a couple of tunneled Roaches, but he is going up towards a very solid economy, right? Still, Mike, how many SCVs have gone down? Hold up, how many SCVs? 17, okay, it feels like it's been a lot more, but... this has been a crazy game here from Bly, playing such a wide variety of strategies. I kind of want him to, like, win this game, just to see this kind of thing work. uThermal is going for the most orthodox style ever. Some may call this boring. I think it's actually really exciting to see players that are really good at it do it extremely well. This is something that he's been practicing for many, many, many years. The same thing over and over and over again. My god, dude, he's got one Roach right there following around those tanks. What about one Raven? Seriously, one Raven would be so nice. You could get rid of so much of this kind of stuff. Regardless, we now see the Brute Lords fighting against all of these units. Keep in mind, there's still Infestors underneath as well. Fungal growths can be absolutely disastrous here for Terran, as one of them does indeed land. Still, though, there's more Brute Lords right there, trying to fly towards the safety of that high ground. Queen's now available as well for transfuse, but it's not being utilized just yet. This is a lot of Terran right here, and I think he's ready to engage. Still, the Brutes, though, they are available. Banelings on the ground as well. The Infestors running to their death right now. Brute Lord's actually a little bit in the back. This is not the greatest engagement here for Bly. I think he could have microed that just a little bit better, but uThermal's army is just not big enough. It's just not big enough. He needs to have something to deal with these Brutes. Oh my god, the Zerglings going in for the wraparound. The Zerglings actually wrapping around so many of those units. That means that the Brute Lords can once again advance forward. We now finally see some of these air units being cleaned up as well, as Bly has Corruptors left over to deal with any kind of Vikings as well. That means that finally some of these Medivacs will go down. Nice Corrosive Balls, softening up a bunch of those Marines, killing a couple of SCVs in the process as well. Fifth base is now trying to get acquired, but there's still that one pesky Zergling on the ground. I think that Bly is going to be able to push this Terran player back. He's going for additional Infestors right now, getting himself the +3 missile upgrade, which actually helps a lot in these infested Terran scenarios as well. The 5th command center falls, and Bly finds himself in a victorious battle. Still, he needs to be cautious. You can't be over-eager here. You gotta be cautious. You do want to keep on the pressure, but you don't want to go for the throat faster than you can, right? It's very easy right now to try and just box all of your units towards the main base, but I don't think you want to do that. These Terran units spawn straight into the engagement. The defender's advantage right now in favor of Terran. We see more and more Infestors coming up. Okay, so ideally, I guess his late game composition is Brute Lord Infestor. Still, though, with this amount of Vikings, right, and without like a Hydra army, It's mostly the Corruptors and the Infestors right now that are here to deal with this, but when you get enough Vikings, indeed, you can start picking away at these Corruptors one at a time. The range right there of those Vikings is insane. At the same time, though, we see a big drop on the right-hand side of the map. uThermal completely blindsiding his opponent right there. Drops with 4 medevacs full of units on the right-hand side, but I think this is not going to achieve too much as the Corruptors are now swooping in. I guess it does force the Zerg army to back off, but I mean, that mostly just delays the inevitable, right? I feel like you need to like do something that's not just Marines and Marauders against this. And I feel like the unit composition here that Bly is going for is much more sophisticated. This is a much more late game focused army, whereas there's no Liberators, there's no Ghost here for the Terran player. I feel like those kind of units could make a world of difference. Having Ghost in the mix right now would be extremely nice with Bly, with a weird strategy, a very strange build order. Seems to take control of this game right here, right now. Okay, he's once again moving forward. There's a couple of Zerglings right here, double checking if there's any hidden bases so he doesn't overextend fungal growth. Flying forward, trying to go after at least some of those Vikings. And there's just so many Infestors right now on the ground. They deal a ridiculous amount of damage as well, those Infested Terrans, by the way, to air units. And now with the fungal hitting the Bio army as well, the Banes can roll forward. And Bly is the one who obtains the victory. What a cool game. So wait, let me try and recap. He scouted with an Overlord at the correct timing that his opponent was playing Bio. Most Zerg players at that point would decide to go for Lings and Banes. Bly instead decided to go for +1/+1 for his Roaches and Ravagers, got himself Roach Speed, got himself Burrow, and then also Tunneling Claws. At that point, while he knew his opponent was going to do a lot of relentless pushing, which is what uThermal does, he just simply parade pushes straight across the map and he tries to make the Zerg player crumble under the pressure. He used the Ravagers and the Roaches, not just for counterattacks, but then the burrowed Roaches also to pick up a lot of the reinforcements. And I guess that bought him enough time to eventually go up towards Hive. At Hive, he got one of those Vipers up in the air. He started going for +3/+3 upgrades, and eventually, after a strange Muta switch, I'm not sure about the Mutas, but eventually he arrived at the point where he had Infestors and Broodlords, and that's kind of like what that whole game led up to. I'm sure that if you would have done critical damage early on, he would have been able to just push for the victory there, and he probably would have tried to do so. But the whole strategy kind of leads towards Infestors and Broodlords, which is the complete opposite of Roaches and Ravagers, obviously. But it took a while, and eventually he tacked up there. What a cool style to play. I really enjoyed that. Very complicated, though, right? Very complicated and very difficult to execute. And I mean, if you're a ladder player, I don't think you necessarily want to give that a try. I mean, you can if you want to, but that's a unit composition that requires a ton of experience to properly pull off. Especially in the late game, right? If you're playing Infestor, Broodlord, Viper, Corruptor, Lingbane, Roach, Ravager, Queen? Did I forget a unit? Did I say Viper? There was one Viper in there. Anyway, like you have to have like 7 hands to properly micro that. So I think that's one of the reasons why Bly ended up not having the perfect engagements there in the end. But man, I feel like that's one of those things where it's just a matter of practice. It's just one of those things where you have to have 4 or 5 control groups just for army alone. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit the like button down below. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you get notifications as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you guys very much for your generosity. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you once again in the next one.